you know, with the transportation, it is so rare, and to go into such an area and the timing and everything, it is such a high risk. I mean, yeah, sure, they must really be covering up something heinous, right? Sure, I understand that reasoning, but do I think it happened? I'm not really sure on that at all. 20% involved, so I've said 72% the offender found the body. 8% involved transporting the body to a secondary scene, and this was actually only 2 cases out of 141. 20% involved an offender currently or previously in law enforcement. Now, a lot is said about this. Did he have a badge? The authority in his voice. Very calm, just very guys down the hill. Well, down the hill. And, you know, I don't want to cast any aspersion on an officer. I know nothing about him, his life, etc. But people do discuss the officer that committed suicide a few months later, who apparently was someone who gave Pat Brown an alibi for earlier in the afternoon. If one can be found, I only sweat really under that arm. It's strange. Sorry about that. Ladylike. I just don't like using aluminium, but I think I might have to use those dangerous aluminium antiperspirants that actually block your skin. Not very healthy though. You know, so if he was seen and if he was in town, other people should be able to provide an alibi as well. I mean, things like that are of a concern, but they can also just be completely a false flag. Now, 20% involved offender, previously in law enforcement. Evidence of staging can be hiding in plain sight. This plain sight terminology is used so often, isn't it? It is not at all common for bodies to be moved to secondary site or a dump site, typically staged where the body is fallen. Evidence of drag trails or drag stains, so that's what they're looking for. You know, have the way people are moved will show up on their bodies, maybe if their body's clothing isn't then rearranged. So anyway, sorry, I'll just read through. I'm just taking too long. Evidence of drag trails, drag stains. Is there bunched or rolled up clothing? Does livor mortis, is it consistent with the final resting position? Is rigor mortis inconsistent with the final resting position? Okay, so, you know, going against gravity, that might mean, right? Same with livor mortis and, you know, and blood where it flows. Gravity never changes and it never lies, okay? Blood evidence in places, there should not be any, you know. So is blood in the right place or the wrong place? Does something look off about that? Trace evidence on the body from another location. So what's out of place there? Yeah, you know, was there alpaca fur there? And, you know, have they never been near an alpaca? Well, that's something out of place. Clothing. So is clothing pushed or rolled, i.e. from dragging shirt bunches up, pulled by arms, trousers go down the legs, and the shirt tails might be really extended tight. The hands might be placed in a normal position. Wasn't Abby sitting with her hands in her lap? That's moved. She could have gone from there to there. That's moved. That's staged. Okay? That's all there had to have been. Well, again, I don't know that, but this is just rumor that I don't take stock of. I'm just saying, if that were true, that Abby is sitting up against the log, she's got her hood up, and she's sitting with her arms folded, well, the hands have been placed in a position to look more normal rather than, you know, however someone might have been. The clothing, has it been removed from the person or scene, and what purpose did this serve? Have pockets been searched? Are they sort of half pulled out? Was the body rolled, causing clothes to partway be unevenly distributed? You know, so everything's sort of tangled. It doesn't look natural. It's not as how you just wear clothes. It's all twisted. Smears of something on the clothes indicating drag and, you know, drag marks. For example, you know, soil smears and leaves and bits, you know, moisture, wet, damp, etc., right? Anything unusual, for example, the clothing, is it inside out or backwards? Was victim redressed after an attack? Why were clothes off in the first place? What purpose would it serve? You know, and this is where the reconstructionists come in. They come in, they reconstruct a crime, and it's to determine these types of things. You know, I'd love to know what reconstructionists with the FBI, the ISP, etc., you know, were they active in this case? To what extent? I really feel they needed to recreate the scene, etc., over and over again. Shoes, are they on the right feet? You know, sometimes to do with traffic accidents, you know, people stage someone getting run over or something like that, but there's not the right scuff marks on the base of the shoes. Is there transfer evidence that is inconsistent with the scene? The hair can show the direction, that how, you know, a person came to be in their position, and this is often overlooked. You know, is it splayed out in the right way to do with how their body might have fallen or be laid? Is it under the face when it should be spread around the face? All of that sort of thing. Because often hair is overlooked, it says. You know, now the types that are staged often could be an execution or hit, sexual homicide, non-specific stranger homicide. Primary scene. So the primary scene where the majority of the attack took place. Okay, so a primary scene might be, might not be where someone actually died, but it's where the majority of the attack took place. And so I guess the secondary scene, it might show the planting of blood on someone's clothing to make it appear like, you know, on someone else's clothing to make it appear like they're involved. It could mean trying to put marking onto clothing of the victim for some reason. It's just, yeah. Now what's this I've written? Sweatshirt. Did Kelsey take off her blood-stained shirt? So, okay, so people that, like, you know, I've said, look, teens could murder. People do like to say that Kelsey could be involved and that she actually did it, you know, so, and there's a lot of confusion about sweatshirts. I mean, the sweatshirts, that is something that has plagued just something in my mind for a long time, but I don't know what it is to do with it. It's just something seems strange. Could be absolutely nothing, but I've said, okay, let's just go there. Was Kelsey wearing a particular sweatshirt? She took it off and she's put it on the girls, and those bloodstains are inconsistent with them being the victim. More likely the bloodstains are consistent with the person who was a perpetrator. Is that, you know, I don't know. And then, you know, or then I thought, well, was maybe a sweatshirt, was that what was found in the creek? Or is it what's missing? I thought maybe a sock might have been found in the creek as well. If Libby's lost one of her shoes, even actually on the south bank of Deer Creek, and then is crossed, a sock could easily come off in the water, and that could have been found downstream, tangled up in the bridge later. We don't know what these items are. We don't know what's missing or not missing. Yeah. So she talks about mutilation to mask what really happened. So if someone is beaten to death, they might be placed in a car and pushed off a cliff. Body placed in a fire to make it look like they're burned to death. So people are already murdered and then they're put in a fire, so their body's burned, so it looks like they just died in the fire. But you can tell things like that they weren't, you know, that they didn't succumb to asphyxiation from the smoke inhalation and things like that, you know. But they're just ways that people try to mask what happened. I know there's someone talking about, you know, where the girl's asphyxiated and then mutilated to mask the real cause of death. I reckon you could probably tell that from the blood flow, even in the type of blood. I really do. Anyway, not going to mention that. A disfiguring injury post-mortem. If weapons or object were placed in the victim's orifices after death, this was also called mutilation. And then overkill might be part of the staging rather than an anger motivation. So yeah, overkill. So, you know, it might look initially like this is a real crime of passion or something, but it just might be done as part of staging. They've just really gone overboard. Anger motivations are more likely to involve staging though. Okay, so a previous relationship. So the majority of cases might be that there was domestic or intimate partner violence. But generally it's considered, you know, to be this type of domestic relationship. It's if you're living under the same roof. And then those crimes are likely to have an anger motivation and then involve staging. So, you know, maybe killing in the spur of the moment, maybe has been, you know, cheated on one too many times, or, you know, whatever it is, okay? Nothing is, you know, nothing warrants murder. Discovered in their own home. So staging, likely to be, you know, have a previous relationship or a domestic or intimate partner relationship, so related to someone living in the same, under the same roof. Discovered in their own home. Majority are male offenders, maybe just because, you know, these sort of rage events just can more likely end in death rather than just simply harm. Maybe, you know, just from sheer strength, or the likelihood to use a weapon more so, like a knife or a gun. I don't know. Haven't got to that bit yet. We'll get to that, won't we, in the next video. It's often for anger, out of anger, or for profit. So, you know, sometimes it's to do with inheritances and things like that. Disproportionately, the offenders are law enforcement officers or past law enforcement officers. I think that was in something like, I'll find the stats that she used for that, something like 20% of cases. Quite a lot. Well, there were some that were unknown, but out of the ones that were, there was 17 plus 7%. You know, there's over 20%, I think, that were law enforcement or ex-law enforcement. And this might be why they attempt to stage. Excuse me. Because they think they know a little bit about crime and hiding their actions. You know, maybe this happens more so when it's not premeditated and they've committed this anger crime, and then rather than turning themselves in and doing the time and then moving on and maybe learning from it and teaching others about it and healing their lives, you know, they go down a really just pile on the disrespect to the victim by not taking accountability. And they try to stage a different type of crime. The offender is most likely to discover the body. will not involve valuables being removed from the body or from the scene in most cases. A suicide note is actually uncommon. Attempts to clean up or destroy evidence at the scene. Yeah, and then I've just said red flags differ for the different types of staging, which I mentioned before. So yeah, I just got interested in that because, you know, look, I know I sometimes misinterpret things. It's just maybe because I'm not paying enough attention, but I like to think I have a reasonable level of literacy, and that might help me try and understand. And I think it's very important to look at these terms. For example, as I was saying, it says was removed, not were removed. So even though Gray Hughes, look, he might have seen he says that he knows that the redacted statement warrant says undergarments, but I don't know, because doesn't it say was removed? And if it's was removed, you don't say, you wouldn't type it as a mistake, undergarments was removed. It's completely wrong in the English language. So it's something that goes with were. That's just what I think. Yeah, I mean, something that just goes with was, which would be sweatshirt or jumper, t-shirt, brassiere, you know? Yeah, and as far as that Country Road 300 North, Crossroad 575 West, in the vicinity of, because that's how you write a report. Ex-law enforcement should remember this. I just think people just get way too excited when they think something feeds their theory. Let's just say theory, you know. Conspiracies happen too. Look, there is a deep, deep mystery surrounding this, but we don't know what it, you know, we don't know what it is. It's highly likely, I mean, what it is, I would be so furious if I were the families that, and as the members of the public, furious that catfishing was taken off out of the equation. But what if that is correct? What if the clients aren't involved, or catfishing isn't involved? It just makes it does actually make it more scary, you know? But when they released the Anthony shots, you know, it was, you know, to get the jump on what was going to be released, right? What was going to be leaked to do with Kegan Kline. But were they really, did they dismiss it truly as it looks for a while? I mean, or were they undercover researching? Because, you know, it's true that there's been a lot of CSAM arrests in Indiana, you know, so for 3 years, it's not like they can't have completely, sorry, I'm just rambling now, they can't have just dropped that angle. But how does it tie in? Someone said there's, you know, it could be a catfishing the catfish, right? Getting them there because they know that that's exactly the type of person that would be thought of as capable of committing the crime. You know, Tony does take it in real life, Tony Kline, because he has had contact with younger people, and Kegan has tried to meet up with people, because you could say that there are the people that just like to, you know, they're just sitting around and they're just using, but wouldn't actually have the gumption to go and do anything. But would that frustration build that, you know, he's never actually managed to convert something into real life? and he's just gone out there in a rage, purposefully. You know, I don't think just to meet and attack, I think to murder, you know. Anyway, sorry that this hasn't been as concise as I would like to have been with this, but I just wanted to sort of set that scene talking about moving or staging. It's very important what is written. Moved or staged, okay? So maybe just the body's moved in such a way that isn't even staging, or maybe that they're trying to work out, is it considered staging? What about it is important? Yeah, but I don't think that it's non-secular at all. I have made videos about that, or at least one, talking about non-secular. What could that mean? But actually, non sequitur makes sense. Makes sense with regards to what we know, what little we know about the scene and the moving or staging, and how that it is sort of complex and intricate. Because, you know, the staging doesn't make sense. It's done without any connection to the rest of the crime, the actual crime, or who the victims are, maybe, you know. And so that's why I wanted to look at who stages crimes. So I will finish reading the rest of the good doctor's thesis, and I'll make the final video just letting you know what her discoveries were. Research-based conclusions, right? So none of this likely business, likely, which is, you know, used all through Ron Logan's thing, used to, you know, basically to facilitate getting the search warrant, I think. Yeah. You know, with regards to the cell phone as well, I mean, they can give coordinates for exactly where the girls were because they know where the girls were, so they can do that. But as far as pings go, you know, we know from so many examples of various crimes or whatever that a phone in one position can be pinging everywhere, right? Anyway, I've run out of time. I don't think it means anything at all to do with the, yeah, you know what I'm saying.